Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking something that literally impacts every single person living in Kenya, and that's Chapter 6 of the Constitution. We're talking leadership and integrity. Now, I know that might sound like a bunch of dry legal jargon, but trust me, it's not. It is the absolute blueprint for the country's future and the ultimate rulebook for anyone who steps into public office.
So, let's kick things off with a question I know crosses almost everyone's mind at some point. Why do leaders accused of serious corruption still get elected in Kenya? It's incredibly frustrating, right? You watch the news, you see the scandals unfold, and yet, the exact same names somehow end up on the ballot and back in office. And we all know that when bad leadership takes the wheel, it translates directly into everyday struggles for the rest of us. Okay, let's dive into this. We really have to ask ourselves, is it the system that's failing us, or is it us? Are the citizens ignoring the standards? Like, are the laws just too weak, or are voters simply looking the other way when they actually head to the polls? To figure out who is really dropping the ball here, we first need to look at what actually happens when these standards are just tossed out the window. Because look, the real-life impact of leadership is absolutely not just some theoretical debate. We're talking about the rising cost of living, high taxes, failing hospitals and healthcare, poor roads, crumbling infrastructure, and a massive lack of job opportunities. These aren't just everyday complaints you hear on the street, They are the direct, tangible results of ignoring integrity at the very top. Literally, every missing public shilling means a pothole doesn't get filled or a hospital bed sits empty. Which brings us to Chapter 6, Leadership as a Public Trust. This is where the Constitution steps in to completely shift the paradigm. It moves us away from that old, outdated idea of leaders as untouchable rulers and redefines them entirely as public servants. And what's truly fascinating here is the exact phrasing in Article 73, Clause 1. It states, authority assigned to a state officer is a public trust, to serve the people rather than the power to rule them. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. Under Kenyan law, leadership is absolutely not a VIP ticket to enrich yourself. It's a mandate to serve, period. So what does public trust actually mean in plain everyday language? Basically, it's a strict mandate requiring leaders to manage public resources responsibly, put citizens first, and act as servants. In local Kenyan life, this means that when a county official or an MP is given a budget, that money belongs to the people. Managing it is a trust. When public funds that were meant for local development just disappear into thin air, well, it's not just financial mismanagement. It is a direct, blatant violation of this constitutional trust. Now let's look at the strict rules of integrity. The framers of the Constitution didn't just toss integrity in there as some vague, feel-good buzzword. Oh no, they clearly mapped out exactly what it requires in practice. Articles 73 and 75 map out these incredible guiding principles: honesty in executing public duties, accountability to the public, transparency, impartiality, and the absolute avoidance of conflict of interest. Listen, these are not optional suggestions for a good PR campaign. They are strict, legally binding constitutional demands. If you hold a public office, you absolutely must align your public and private life with these rules, no exceptions.
And this brilliantly illustrates that frustrating disconnect we see all the time. On one hand, the Constitution demands public interest, financial probity, and dignity. Yet, on the other hand, the reality we read about in the news every day is often the exact opposite. Nepotism, misusing public funds to reward friends, demeaning the office for personal gain. You get the picture. But the law is clear. Every single action on the wrong side of this divide is explicitly outlawed.
Let's see how these rules apply when we talk about money. Article 76 covers financial probity, and it's super strict. It explicitly states that a gift or donation given to a state officer on an official occasion actually belongs to the republic. So it goes to the state, not into their personal pocket. Furthermore, state officers cannot maintain secret bank accounts outside Kenya without an act of parliament, and they definitely cannot seek or accept sketchy personal loans that would compromise their integrity. Their finances are heavily restricted, specifically to prevent bribery and theft.
But wait, the restrictions don't stop there. Article 77 targets gainful employment. For full-time state officers, they cannot participate in any other gainful employment. They also can't hold office in a political party. They've got to be 100% dedicated to the public. And for retired state officers who are receiving a pension from public funds, they're capped. They cannot hold more than 2 remunerative positions in state-owned companies. The whole setup is designed specifically to prevent leaders from, double-dipping and endlessly draining public funds.
Then we have Article 78, which demands absolute loyalty. To be eligible for election or appointment to a state office, you literally must be a citizen of Kenya, and you cannot hold dual citizenship. Your allegiance cannot be divided. Now, there are a few minor exceptions, like for judges or members of commissions, but generally speaking, a leader's loyalty must lie solely and entirely with Kenya.
Okay, moving on to the missing link in accountability. So, if the rulebook is this incredibly thorough, if the Constitution spells out exactly how a leader should behave, how they should manage money and show loyalty, why is it failing on the ground?
Well, Articles 79 and 80 do lay out the steps for enforcing these rules, proving that literally no one is above the law. First up, you have public audits and oversight to monitor resources. Second, the Constitution specifically mandated the creation of the Independent Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, the EACC, to investigate compliance. And third, there is clear allowance for disciplinary action in court cases. Leaders can absolutely be questioned, investigated, and taken to court.
But here is the absolute most crucial point. Article 75, Clause 3. It clearly states that a person who has been removed from office for violating these integrity rules is permanently disqualified from holding any other state office. It is a one-strike policy, folks. If you are fired for a breach of integrity, you are legally out of the game for good. No coming back. But here we are again at our core problem. If the rules are this crystal clear and the penalties are this strict, why do leaders with serious corruption allegations still win elections? Think about that for a second. The legal system has given us all the tools. The laws are right there on the books. So the missing link? It isn't the Constitution. The missing link is the enforcer, the voter.
And that brings us to your role in accountability. This really brings the whole explainer home. The Constitution sets the absolute gold standard, sure, but it is entirely up to you to enforce it at the ballot box.
Because the true cost of ignoring integrity, it impacts absolutely everything. As you can see, it's a massive hit to the cost of living, it's a drain on job opportunities, it leads to a collapse in healthcare, and a total breakdown of local roads. Poor voting choices literally equal poor outcomes across all aspects of your daily life. Every single time a voter prioritizes a candidate's wealth or connections over their constitutional integrity, these everyday aspects of life take the hit. Which brings us to the ultimate takeaway of this explainer. Leadership is a public trust, and citizens decide who gets that trust. The Constitution gave you the power to hire and fire your public servants. At the end of the day, you hold the ultimate power of enforcement. So I want to leave you with two vital questions to think about. Should leaders with corruption allegations even be allowed to run for office? And when you step up to vote, do you actually prioritize integrity or something else? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I would genuinely love to see where you all stand on this. And hey, make sure to subscribe to follow this series as we continue breaking down the Constitution chapter by chapter. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you in the next one.